Hi, guys. All right. Hello. Oh, there we are. Hey, I'm trying to get the chat where I want it so I can see it good. And I think it's in the right place. Perfecto. All right. Hey, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. Hey, Teddy, thank you for joining us today. All right, guys. Yes, I have, Karina. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Hey, Rich. I'm glad you popped in. Good to see you, sweetheart. All right, guys, as everybody's coming in, grab your books. Hi, Angelina. Being Me, Loving You by Marshall Rosenberg. I really like this book. I've learned so much from it. Hi, Marcy. Hey, Stellar. Hey, thank you, Rich. And you are very popular and one of my favorites too. People tell me how much they like you all the time. You are very popular. Everybody, you guys know Rich. Rich does a channel where he does readings. He's a fellow Aquarius. So, for those of you who don't know Rich, check out his channel because he is spectacular. All right, guys. So, like I said before, if you grab your books, we'll start our discussion. Hey, MK. Um, this book is really very interesting. I'm really glad that I got this book. I'm learning a lot. I've read other books by this same author on nonviolent communication, but this one is specifically to relationships, so it's been very helpful to for me. Oh, you don't have it, MK? MK, you gotta get it. MK, this is the name of it. It's by Marshall Rosenberg, and it's really good. It's a little glare there. There we go from the light, but it's really good. It's all about relationship issues, issues that regular average couples have. Yeah, it's on Amazon. And it's like cheap. It's like $6 or $9 if you're in Canada. And it's about relationships that regular old couples have, problems that regular old couples have. And he talks about them and dissects them and tells you what to do about them and things like that. So it's $5 on iTunes. Okay. Yeah. So it's not expensive at all. But yeah, it's really good for those reasons. So for today, what I did was I read pages 19 to 23. And in 19 to 23, all we're going to do is talk about the issue because the issue is a very common one, and there's two of them, and they're both related to each other. So we're going to talk about the issues and talk about times in our lives we may have experienced this. What do we do? Things along those lines, because he gives some real good understandings. So for those of you who don't have the book, I'm going to explain everything so you can just go along with me and anybody who does have it, because I'm going to ask questions and we're just going to go along. Okay. All right. Let's get to 19. Okay. So let's deal with the first problem. Marshall says on page 19 that sometimes we get together with our significant other and we're going somewhere, we're driving somewhere, we're walking somewhere. And he says that we make a comment about something that we like or something that we see or something like that. And the other person automatically thinks that the reason why we're saying it is because we want them to do something. Like, for example, if in this case, the person said, "Oh, isn't that a cute house?" Or "Look at the lake." So the other person automatically thinks that this person is throwing them a hint that they either want them to buy them something, or in this case, they want them to take them to the lake. So Marshall is saying that this happens when you do not ask your partner for what you want, but instead you throw little hints at your partner and hope that they will understand what it is that you want. So, what I wanted to ask you first and foremost is, are there times when you don't directly ask for what you want? And if those times do happen, why? Why didn't you just ask specifically for what you wanted? So for me, there has been, oh, you got it on Kindle. Good, MK. Okay. So for me, there has been times when I have not asked my partner for what I wanted. Generally, it happens when I think they're not going to give it to me. When I think if I ask for X, they're going to say no, or they're going to disagree, or it's going to be an argument. Those are the times when I may not ask for what I want. Oh, that's good, MK. That's really good. And Marcy, you said you've experienced this too. Those are the times when I don't ask, when I think it's going to cause a fight or when I think I'm not going to get it. Like, for example, if I know we need a new refrigerator. Hey, Crystal, welcome. If I know we need a new refrigerator and I know that they're not going to want to spend the money for it, I might not say anything or ask for it until I absolutely have to. Yeah, Teddy, everything doesn't have to have a hidden agenda. But if you do that all the time, if you're a person who does that in your relationships, if you're a hint dropper, that's when these kind of misunderstandings start to happen. So asking outright, that's the best way, MK. Asking outright. Hello, Lady Aquarius. Welcome to the room. That's the best way to ask outright. That's exactly what Marshall is saying here. Just to ask outright, speak up, don't drop hints, you know. And he said that when you do drop hints, the other person gets used to your words always having an ulterior motive. I've said things to people or been in a relationship with someone and said something to them, and they automatically tell me that I'm spinning, I'm spinning it, or my words, they're afraid that they have a different meaning than what I'm saying. And that's because I would drop hints or use other types of manipulation. Let's call it verbal manipulation, because I didn't think I was going to get what I wanted. So instead of doing that, they're saying to just say what you want. Now, somebody said, Marcy said she's been accused of being too blunt. And yeah, Teddy says she's been accused of this too. Yeah, accused of being sneaky. Yeah. So Marcy talked about also that goes along with this being too blunt. So some people don't want you to say things in such a blunt manner. But I say, according to Marshall, that you should ask for it. Marshall said on page 19, ask for what you want. Ask directly for what you want. Now, he also gives the example of a husband, and this husband keeps on making comments to his wife about how slow the train is going. And the wife finally just snaps and says, "What do you want me to do about it? Like, what do you want?" And the husband didn't really want her to do anything. All he wanted her to do was empathize with his feelings. That's all he wanted. He didn't want her to change it or try to change it or make a miracle happen. The husband kept making this statement about how slow the train is. So naturally, he didn't think his wife was going to be able to do anything about it, but he wanted her to empathize with his feelings. And she wasn't getting that. She wasn't getting that from what he was saying. So Marshall said that he should have just asked her straight up to empathize with his feelings. And this is how Marshall told him to say it. Could you just reflect back right now what I'm feeling and needing? So instead of talking about the train, complaining about the train over and over again, and her not getting what he's trying to say, Marshall said he should have just asked her, I need some empathy right now. Can you please reflect back to me? Now, I don't know very many people who would have done that. But when I heard Marshall say it, I was like, wow, that is just so simple. Think about all of the tactics that people do for attention, all of the tactics that people do because they want you to empathize with them or they want you to sympathize with them. All of the things they do. You know, exactly. If someone asks you that question directly, you might be more willing to actually do it instead of them trying all these sneaky, deceptive, communicative ways to get you to empathize with them, to say, yeah, I understand how you're feeling. All he had to do was ask her. So when I read that, I was blown away because it's so simple but it's so profound because I've seen so many people do things for attention. I've seen so many people do dysfunctional things to get their lover to pay attention to them, to give them empathy. I've seen them do so many things, and the answer is just to ask. Simply ask the question. And you said, I can't just ask, I do, and it pisses Pisces off. I don't know why your Pisces is pissed off by you asking for what you want. So that's a very good question. You need to talk to your Pisces about why it pisses him off or she off when you ask for what you want. That's a question I would just ask straight up. He thinks I'm sneaky. Yeah, I saw in a comment above you said he thought you were sneaky, but when you're being transparent, you're still being accused of being sneaky. So something is wrong there. There's a disconnect in that communication right there. So you guys have to talk about that. That's exactly what the communication is about. Talking about it. And that's exactly what I would say to him. I would be like, when I'm being transparent, you think I'm being sneaky. So I don't really understand how I can be transparent with you. What do you need me to do? I would just ask the question. And that's something that Marshall told us in the first couple pages, that when you get that kind of a response, to just ask. And see, also, these things as they arise and you have to talk about them, they're not easy. These conversations are not easy, but they are good for the relationship. These conversations are how you get stuff like this clear. So, Love in Aquarius said, always remember to ask nicely. Ask things with love. Yes. And that's what Marshall said. Remember how he worded the question? He said, could you please reflect back to me what I'm feeling and needing? He didn't say, look, are you paying attention? I need some empathy right now. You see, he said it in a kind, you know, open-hearted kind of way, So he said the same thing I just said, but he said it in a nice, open, kind way. And you do want to ask in those kind of ways. You don't want to say things to people. Like I said, being blunt is okay, but the bluntness, I would take from that the honesty, the transparency, but say it in a kind way. People respond more to honey than they do to vinegar. That's always been the case. So in your relationships, try to say things as sweetly as possible. So then he asked her to reflect, and Marshall said that now he can probably get what he wants. He's asked her for empathy. She'll be more than likely willing to give it at this point, and then they can move on to the next thing. And on page 21, he says, this does not solve the problem. The train is still going slow. The train is going to continue to go slow. But at least now he has the empathy that he wanted. She's not worried or upset about, did I just respond the way he wants me to respond? And they can move on to the next thing. They can live to discuss another day. Absolutely, it's hard when it's upset. I had this challenge trying to. Yeah, when you're upset, it is very difficult. A lot of times, I try not to talk until I'm over being upset. I try to go somewhere and let the energy out. I like to go and release that mad, hurt energy before I try to talk, because that's when it doesn't come out right. Okay. Yeah, so that's the best that we can do in these particular situations if we intend to have these conversations. Someone was saying that they might not want to be sometimes. Well, do you want the relationship? Do you want to have good communication in your relationships? That's the bottom line. So if you want the person that you're dealing with to talk to you and to be with you and to have a happy relationship, and we know they're not going to be happy all the time, but if you want to get the best out of it, then yeah. All right. So the last one, the last part of this that's really important, Marshall says, is that in order for us to ask for what we want, we have to first know what we want. Now, this one is a little bit trickier because if you go back to the situation with the husband on the train, the husband may or may not have been conscious of the fact that what he wanted was empathy. So Marshall's saying in this part, when we get to page 21, that this woman here is using food. She is using food to cover up what she actually wants. So what she wants is love. But instead of just reaching for and asking for love, she's doing it by eating sweets in this particular example. But it could be sweets, it could be shopping, it could be sex, it could be any of these things. So he's saying that a lot of times we don't know what we want. So how can we ask for what we want? And that's a very serious question. And this part is more internal. So it's something that goes on between you and your partner, but understanding it is something that goes on inside of you. Understanding it is something is that's internal. So how do you know what you want? And this might change from day to day, from moment to moment, from hour to hour. So in this part, Marshall is saying that we are responsible for getting in tune with and knowing what we want and not using escapism or uh any kind of way of distracting ourselves from what it is that we really do want. So it led me to thinking in this part, do you know what you want? Those of you that are here right now, do you generally know what you want? Because I think I know some of what I want. I think I do know some of what I want. But I think that it changes. It changes as I evolve. So Marcy said, you can't get your Gemini to open up. So it's all that's one of the first things we learned when we first started reading this book is that the willingness has to be there. So if your Gemini is not willing to open up, that is a very tough road. Hey, Robert, how are you? So, MK, you said you do know what you want. So, Robert, you just walked in. Tell me, Robert, if you can hear me, do you know what you want out of life all the time? That's what we're talking about. Hey, Papa. Um, it changes as we evolve, MK, definitely. Yeah, do you know all the time, Robert, or do you know any of the time? Because that's what we're talking about is how can you ask your partner for what you want if you don't know what you want? And that's a very valid question because that's what's happening on page 21 of this book is that the wife doesn't know what she wants. So she can't ask for what she wants. Exactly, know themselves. Exactly. That's what they say. The ancients say, know thyself. So sometimes that's what I would think that most of us know sometimes. Now, Papa, you said that's why you have the wife. So does your wife tell you what you want? Do you just let her tell you, okay, this is what you want today? Let me see. Ah, okay, okay. That you Robert has a solid full picture of goals. That's good. That's very good. I do have a lot of my goals. I know a lot of the things I want as far as that's concerned because you guys remember with the law of attraction, if you're trying to manifest something, you have to know what it is you want to manifest. So I do know some of the goals that I want, like my lifetime goals, that I do know. Some of them anyway, because they change. Like some of them I actually, finish the goal, I complete the goal, achieve the goal. Some of them I decide I don't want that goal anymore. I want a different goal. Some of them I'm still working on. So the goals are a little they're all over the place, but they're all in some level of movement. Ah, so Robert is saying the person he was with was unclear about what she wanted to do, and that's what broke up their relationship. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Know what you want, but leave everything else to the universe. Yes, Rich. Yeah. But you got to know what it is, and that's the whole thing. And if you can't figure out what it is, then your partner can't. Sometimes your partner can intuit or guess what you want, but that's what Marshall is saying is that gets very tricky. That's where the communication problems come in. That's where the pain from the other person comes in. That's where the confusion comes in, as you not just asking for it. And the games can start at this time, definitely. So what they're saying here is that to ask to know what you want and to ask for it. So like I said before, when dealing with your partner, um, you have to know what it is you want in that moment. Like for example, if you were in a situation like in here, this woman said that she will start to crave chocolate. And she realized that when she was craving chocolate, she was actually craving love. So what she would do is she would come to her husband and they would sit around and eat sweets together. So it wasn't the sweets that she wanted, it's the attention, the time, the focus, the love from her husband. So once she realized that, instead of going to get some sweets, she can just go talk to her husband. Just go say to him, I would like some time with you right now, or whenever you're not busy, I would like some time with you. So that was the last part of what Marshall said, is that on page 23 is that we have to learn before we're able to engage and communicate effectively, we have to learn what it is that we want. So that's the other part that's really important. Thank you, loving. Thank you so much. So that's the last part of it. We have to figure out what it is that we want so that we can get it, not just from the universe, but also from the other person. So the last takeaway that Marshall gives us is to not expect people to guess. And I think that is fair, Robert, not to expect people to guess. Yeah, they get yes, they're sitting around getting fat off these sweets. Well, all she had to do was say, I want some love. Yeah, instead of eating all these sweets. Hi, Arwa. Hello, Gabe. Thank you so much, Gabe. So instead, the takeaway is Ask for what you want. Figure it out and then ask. Especially if you see this in yourself. If you see yourself having some type of addiction, some type of craving, even like it was sweets in this case. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be shopping, it could be money, it could be any of these things. But if you see yourself craving some type of thing or some type of activity or something, especially if you identify it as being problematic. If it's not problematic, then fine. But in this case, she identified it as being a problem. So when you see yourself with something that you identify as being a problem, try to see, what do you really want? What is that craving? What is that desire? What are you really craving? What do you really want? Is it attention? Is it love? Like, what is it? Hey, Nicole, what is that thing that you're missing? And why do you feel that way? What are you trying to go for? Because 9 times out of 10, you could just be using something to pacify it, to mask it, something along those lines. And if you could figure out what that is, you can get exactly what you want instead of what you're substituting it with. So if what you want is a happy relationship, instead of substituting it with a Louis Vuitton bag, you could actually get the relationship. You could actually do the work to get the communicative relationship instead of the bag. The bag is fun and all, but the relationship is what you really want. Like in her case, the chocolate was delicious and all, but what she really wanted was her husband. She wanted to spend time with him. So when she finally said that, that's when she finally got it. Thanks, old school. Yeah, people can become addicted to shopping. According to psychologists, they can become addicted to shopping. They can become addicted to food. They can become addicted to people. They can become addicted to sex. They can become addicted to coffee, anything that has a stimulant or a drug or a hormone in it. So basically, human beings can become addicted to almost anything. I saw a woman on television who was addicted to eating toilet paper. She would sit and roll up toilet paper in little balls and eat them. And that was her addiction. And it was like, how did you get addicted to that? Like, how did you discover that? What, were you just sitting in the bathroom one day and started eating pieces of toilet paper? It was crazy. Another woman, I saw her, she got addicted to eating um the foam in her mattress. Literally, she was picking it. Some of you said you saw this. She was picking it out of the mattress and she was eating the foam from the mattress. She had eaten her entire mattress by the end of the show. I think the show was like months and months and months. Yeah, it's a name for it. It's some kind of disorder, but they're addicted to it and they can't stop. It's a compulsion. And I bet you if they talk to a therapist, there's a reason for it. There's something that they're missing. There's something that they want, that they're craving, just like Marshall said, but they don't know how to get it. They don't know how to ask for it. They don't know how to get it from their friends, their family, their loved ones. So, yeah, people can become addicted to anything. So, Robert just says somebody became addicted to eating her father's ashes. That is disgusting. That is disgusting. But hey, I guess anything could happen. Hobby Inc. That is gross. Like, can you imagine? So, like I said, you can become addicted to eating or consuming or having almost anything, you know? So, a lot of times I see shows like this or I read things, online about addictions and things like that. And I guarantee you, like that show, I told you guys I love that show. It's called Intervention. It comes on A&E, and I used to always watch Intervention, and it's a really great show. And that's what it's all about. It's about people who have these horrible addictions. I mean, horrible addictions, and some of them were chemical. I remember this one girl. She was addicted to sucking out of cans. It was some kind of aerosol can. It was like furniture polish or something. And some kind of way she became addicted to inhaling the stuff that was um inside of these cans. And she was really sick. Like they ended up having to send her to like a rehabilitation facility. Yeah, they take your pets away, your children. Yeah, it can be really bad. So if you ever have a chance to watch Intervention, you'll see what I'm talking about. And at the end of every show, at the end of every intervention, they sit there and talk to each other. And one of the things that I notice is that every time they start talking, they're talking about needs that are not being met in that person's life. Every last one of those addicts has some kind of tragic story, some kind of emotional tragic story that happened. And then they went on to not know how to get their needs met, how to meet them themselves, how to meet them in their relationships. So every last one of those stories is just like this woman in this chocolate. Now, the chocolate is something that's not going to kill her as quickly as maybe some of those drugs will, you know. But either way, if you watch at the end of every session of intervention, the person is talking about their trauma, talking about how they just couldn't get it together, and they're talking about not being able to meet their own needs. And it's the same thing this wife is talking about. So our takeaway from that last section is just to be conscious about what we need and try to get it in healthy ways. Try to get it by asking for it, by going for it, by manifesting it, by reaching for it, instead of by escaping or substituting it with something else. So Marshall gave us a lot to think about. I like this section. And it is something that I will think about moving forward. I will make sure that in my relationships, I ask for exactly what I need. Yes, exactly. The addiction is a surrogate for what they can't produce in their life or what they can't get from their partners. So the addiction replaces it because it's easy to get their addiction. They can get the drugs, they can get the candy, they can get the money, they can get the merchandise, but they can't get the love they want. They can't get the job they desire. They can't get the relationship with their mother that they've always wanted. They can't get their father to say, I love you. They can't get their kids to understand where they're coming from. It's something they can't get. So they just substitute it. All right, guys. So it's time for us to get going. Take care, loving Aquarius. Thank you for being here. So it's time for us to get going. So does anybody have a question or anything along those lines about what we're talking about before we say good night? Love you too, Samaj. Hey, thank you for being here. Yes, peace and release. I love that. I love that. I always tell people forgive and release. We hold on to so many things that we need not hold on to. So if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't make you happy, just let it go. Let it go, right? All right, guys. Let's get going. So remember, if you want to get a reading, you can email me and I will give you an appointment. You can also hit me up on social media. Okay. Likewise, I'm gonna leave all my information under this video in case you want to talk with me. People, she has a question. She said, how can people really figure out emotions? Your own emotions or another person's emotions, because if you're talking about your own emotions, it's just a matter of self discovery, what we call introspection. Some of the times it involves, for instance, journaling, talking to another person about emotions, talking to a professional about emotions, tuning into yourself through meditation or those kind of methods. If it's another person's emotions, you really can't figure them out. I mean, you can, but it's always best for them to tell you what they're feeling. I'd rather somebody tell me what they're feeling than guess what they're feeling. Even though I might be right. Most times I know. Most of the times I hit it right on the head, but I would rather they tell me what they're feeling than me tell them what they're feeling. I hate when people tell me what I'm feeling. It's like, you don't know me like that, dog. Don't tell me what I'm feeling. Let me tell you what I'm feeling. So I don't want to have to read a person's mind. Exactly, MK. I want them to tell me what they're feeling. And I like I said before, I don't like it when it's done to me. Even though if a person, like for instance, when I'm doing a reading, if a person is stuck, sometimes a person gets stuck explaining to me what they're feeling. And in those cases, I'll say, well, is it this? But I'll present it as a question, not as a statement. So then they can kick it around and see if that makes sense and if that's true for them, if it resonates with them. Custom Bangles is an Aquarius, and they said they're an empath. How do I block the energy if it's too much for me? Well, you have to learn control. Empaths have to teach themselves control. You're going to have to get some literature, some books, some information on how to control it. Because, and I've done videos on how to control it too, by the way. So you just take a look and search in my videos because you have to learn how to control it. Sometimes the energy will be too much. But if you learn how to effectively put up shields and if you learn how to cleanse energy, you'll be able to keep yourself on point. You're going to have to learn methods. There's a couple methods you have to learn. Yeah, the recharging, that's definitely part of the cleansing. After you've been through something intense, it's really important to be able to get yourself away. That's very true. But you're going to have to learn those methods because, like I said, for example, one time I walked into Pet Boys and everybody was angry. They were really, really angry because the cashier was incompetent and had the line backed up. The line was backed up. So people were pissed. And I wasn't pissed. I walked in kind of chilling. And when I got in line, I instantly got irritated. And I was like, wait a minute. After a few moments, I was like, what's wrong with me? I was just fine a couple seconds ago. And then I started looking at the people around me and I realized everybody was pissed. And then I looked at the cashier and I saw him arguing with two or three people in the front of the line. And I realized why everybody was pissed. So I was at the end of the line. So I went outside. I detached from the energy. I went outside. I breathed for a minute and I said, this is not your energy. This is not your anger. Don't take on somebody else's anger. I breathed for a bit and then I went back inside. And by the time I came back inside, they had opened up two more lines and I was first in the third line. So it really takes for you to be aware and sometimes separate yourself from the energy. Let me see. And let's see. She says, yeah, it's draining you. Yeah, custom, it will drain you. That's why you have to learn how to cleanse it and learn how to put a bubble around yourself, learn how to block it, learn how to recharge yourself, and then you'll be fine again. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that. You would be surprised how many people I meet that are empaths and don't know those things because our culture doesn't teach us that. Unless you're Googling for it or learning about it, reading books about it, it's not something that just pops up in health class. Hey, are you an empath? That would be great if we learned that in health class, wouldn't it? And because so many people are and they never know. And then I meet them and they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s. They've went through this their whole life and have suffered through it. And they meet me and I'm like, oh, all you gotta do is this. And they're like, why didn't somebody tell me this 40 years ago? All right, guys. So it's time for us to get going, and I will see you guys Thank you so much for being here with me. It was a fun conversation. And I'm going to continue reading for our next conversation. So I'm going to start, of course, at the bottom of 23, and I'm going to read a bit. So in a couple of days, I will announce where I stopped at. I'm only going to do like 4 or 5 pages. So any of you guys that want to catch up with us, you can. I'm going to go from 23 to like about, usually I go to like 28 or something like that, but not much further than that. It just depends on where it naturally cuts off at. So I'll let you guys know in a few days where I stopped at, okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. See you later. Oh, and MK said that there is some kind of discount on Prime for members. So if anybody wants the book that doesn't have it and you're a Prime member, you can apparently get it. I think it says here MK said for her Kindle, she got it. So for those of you who still want it, I would check out the sale. All right, guys. Thanks for being here and have a happy Sunday.